Hey, Squirrel Army, how's it going? Today we're talking about Archdruid's Charm.
You can join the Squirrel Army by subscribing.
Alright, so Archdruid's Charms is triple green, instant. You choose one, and you choose between three. You can search your library for a creature or land card. Not basic land card, okay. Put it into the battlefield tapped if it's a land card. Okay, so that explains probably why. Otherwise, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Okay, I initially thought that was worded a bit different, but we'll continue. Put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. It basically fights another creature, or it deals damage equal to its power to another creature you don't control, or exile a artifact or enchantment. First impressions of this weren't very high for me because, like, at 3 mana, like, for the most part, like, I would want to be able to have a little bit more flexibility. Certainly exiling an artifact or enchantment for 3. There's been some, like, artifact and enchantment, like, hate or whatever, like, at 2 or 3 that kind of does that. Like, I think it's mostly in white, actually. But it's like 2 in a white or whatever. Things like that. So certainly not unheard of to be at 3. Like, a lot of, like, land tutors, like Cultivate, Kadama's Reach, whatever, those sorts of things, they all put a land into play tapped. This has the added benefit of being able to tutor for a creature when you need it instead of just tutoring for land. Obviously, like in standard, modern, pioneer, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff, where you can play 4 or 5, or well, 4 copies of this thing, it changes the math quite a lot. But in Commander, you can only play with one of these. So, like, if you draw it fairly early and you need the ramp, it's probably going to do an okay job. It's not like Cultivate or Kadama's Reach, which is, 3 mana, you get 1 to field and 1 to hand, which I just think isn't that amazing anyway, but still, like, I'd rather just Nature's Law and for 2, and it's usually untapped. So, like, that's usually just better. Putting a counter on a creature and having it deal damage to another creature, Like a lot of green creatures have this sort of thing where they're very big, but you often just can't deal with something and you do need to kill it. So that can work well, and your creature doesn't take any damage, so that's okay as well. So you can just get it back in there and doing its thing. Exiling an artifact and enchantment, again, like, at least it's exile, at least it's not just destroy. They realized that this needed to be buffed a little bit more. Like, if this, like, I don't know what you could do, like, with this, but, like, if this was just, like, not 3 solid green, like, I'd, like, probably be a little bit more happy with it. Like, I guess all of, like, if there's a cycle of these, they're all going to be doing this sort of thing where they're 3 of the color that they're in. Maybe there's not a cycle and maybe green gets the only one. I won't be too surprised if that happens, because green seems to just get all the good stuff all the time, even though this isn't that good, but still. Like, oh, wow, green was the only one that got one of these. Oh, wow. Like, what? As if green wasn't overpowered enough. Like, I don't know. Like, I like green, as I sort of have said before, but, like, sometimes just the way they kind of go about, like, the way they treat the color pie and that sort of thing is just, like, so, like, lopsided, and green literally gets everything and all the other colors are just there going, please, sir, give us something, anything, like, I don't understand why white doesn't have a 1 mana disenchant effect still to this day. Like, I really don't. Like, why doesn't white have something like Nature's Claim? Like, why not? Like, I don't understand. What's the problem with giving Wider Nature's Claim? It's meant to be about destroying artifacts and enchantments or whatever. Yes, at some cost. Yeah, give them a bit of life or give them a land or something. Whatever else it is. I don't care, but, that's probably fine. Like, the fact that this doesn't really give the opponent an upside, you just like getting rid of their thing for the last mode, isn't too bad. Same with the second mode. Like, if it said, if it dies this turn, exile it, that would be good as well. If it said creature or planeswalker, that'd be good too, because even if you think planeswalker is less relevant, which it is, but still, like, just being able to instant speed, deal damage to a planeswalker and perhaps take it out, or at least take it down, because somebody now was going to alt it or whatever, and now they can't alt it, so, now they've got to change their game plan. Yeah. Later on in the game, with the first one, you're certainly going to get a creature, but early on, you're probably going to get a land so that you can start building it up. Like, if you have, like, Calamax and some of those other, like, caring about spells style decks, perhaps, like, those that, like, obviously those are the sorts of decks that you want to put this in, more so, because then you can copy it, or then you can get it back from your graveyard more easily, because you're really caring about instant and sorcery. And whatnot. So yeah, you can like do way more with it, and you just have way more synergy with it. Like, just as a one-off in your deck, it's probably not bad, certainly, because again, like, it has 3 modes that aren't too bad. But the problem is, like, this is always going to be a problem, is that not all the time most of the modes are going to be that relevant. Like, the only mode that's, like, guaranteed to be, like, most relevant is the first one. Like, search for a land or creature, put it into the battlefield or put it to your hand. Like, that's, like, the most relevant one. Again, so, like, there's a bunch of, like, 3-mana green tutors, and things like that, or even a couple of mana tutors that tutor for creatures, things like that. So, like, that's fine, I think, as well, but I don't know. I'm still kind of on the fence with it. I think that it has a lot of upsides to it, certainly, and it can be quite a powerful card, but I do feel like there's just something that I feel like it's not quite there. It doesn't quite hit the mark for me. I certainly don't think I'll be putting it into any decks that I've got currently, or even plan to build. So if I happen to open one, I'm probably just putting it into my junk box and then probably selling it as soon as I basically can, because it's probably not going to wind up being a card that I really want to look at playing that much. But that's just me. Like, you guys, as I sort of say, you guys make your own decisions on this. If you find it's very useful in your decks, certainly that's fine. Again, that's probably because, like, I wouldn't tutor for a land and I wouldn't tutor for a creature. So, like, the most relevant part of this card is pretty irrelevant to me, just because I don't like tutoring and that sort of thing. Putting a counter on a creature, like I said, like, sometimes you're not even going to have a creature to put counters on. So you're like, well, cool, I don't have any creatures to put counters on, so there's no point in that mode. And then exile an artifact or enchantment. Well, yeah, again, my opponent just doesn't have any artifacts or enchantments, or the thing that or like he does, or they do, or whatever. But the thing, I'm not worried about an artifact or enchantment. Right now, I'm worried about his creature, but I can't get rid of it, or whatever. Or I'm worried about his entire board, right? Like, I'm worried about, like, 5 things, or 6 things, or 10 things, or 20 things that he's got, not this one thing. Like, sometimes that is the thing, where it's like, this one thing is effing me over and I need to get rid of it, or it's just that thing is giving that person just way too much value and we need to get rid of it. So, just send this off, pop it up. It is good against, like, decks like Muldrotha and things like that, or at least the last part is, to exile artifacts and enchantments and things like that, because like that's one of the problems with like Muldrotha decks and things like this is like it's, oh my god, you know, as soon as you destroy it, oh well, now it's back again, here we go again. So you just never get anywhere with those decks because you just can't get rid of anything on a really permanent basis, because as soon as you've gotten rid of it, oh, here it comes back again. So you just wasted your mana and your spell and everything just to get rid of it. But if you really need to get rid of it, it's like, well, what am I meant to do? I have to get rid of it. So, you know, I'm doomed if I get rid of it, and I'm doomed if I don't get rid of it. So, like, I have to get rid of it because, like, that's my only option right now. But, yes, certainly I can't do anything because he's just going to get it back next turn, or even maybe this turn if he hasn't played an enchantment or artifact already from his graveyard. So, but what can you do? You can only make so many choices sometimes. But certainly that level of flexibility, I'm just really, really stuck. I'm just like still stuck up on this. I'm just thinking, oh, man, if you got to choose 2 modes, even if it was 1 mana more, I'd be a bit happier with that. Because then at least you're getting 2 things for the, you know, for the cost, which I think is like the sweet spot. You want your 3 and 4 or more things to hit more than 1 thing, or to do more than 1 thing. You don't want your 3 mana or more things to just like do 1 thing. Like 1 or 2 mana things, they can do 1 thing and do it fairly well. That's fine. But when it's 3 or more, it's got to do just way more. It's a weird place to sort of make the cut, but certainly that is the place that seems to have like naturally become the cutting point. 1 and 2 mana, it's fine if it just does this 1 thing, and if it does more, then that's really good. But like if you have a 3 or more thing that just kind of does 1 thing, then it's kind of like, well, it's not really going to get there. So you need other things to really like figure that out and get from like where you're at to where you really want to be with those cards. So, but that's what I'm thinking with this card, and my thoughts in general on this, and maybe even the cycle, depends if there is a cycle. But yeah, you guys can let me know, as always, what you guys think. Write your thoughts down there in the comments below. Whatever you want to say, it's all open, all down there for you to say it. Hope you've enjoyed this video one way or the other, and hope you join me again in another one.